This
Fine, fine.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for joining this call. And so we are discussing about Azure Active Directory workshop by VsignInfotech. So in this Azure Active Directory workshop, we will cover a lot more things with Azure Active Directory. So firstly, we will discuss what is Azure Active Directory. So it's like one of the identity access management tool. And so, what exactly identity access management covers? Here, identity access management is one of the cybersecurity method, or I would say one of the part in cybersecurity. In cybersecurity, we have multiple things to cover, like different securities that we have to provide, firewall, or networking, or application protection. So like, yeah, so this is one of the module. Identity access management is one of the module in cybersecurity. And in identity access management is like, what exactly identity access management, so what exactly identity it provides. So identity is nothing but who you are. So it represents who you are. That means like identity. And access management, for example, for one user, how you are giving the access, like the level of access that we have to provide to that specific to that user. So that control and access management. So this is totally like identity access management. And in identity access management, we have multiple products like Azure Active Directory, Ping, ForgeRock, OKTA. So Azure Active Directory is one of the tool that comes under identity access management. So Azure Active Directory is purely a cloud-based service which is provided by Microsoft. And Azure has different services like infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So Azure Active Directory is one of the service. And so yeah, so Azure Active Directory, it gives or it provides identity management and access management and auditing services. So this provides like, these are the major three services that provide Azure Active Directory. Identity management, like the user attributes or user information that is managed with the help of Azure Active Directory. And access control, so the level of access that we need to provide to the user. So for example, if it is a manager, the level of access is different, and if it is a user, the level the access for that user is different level, like that. So we have to control the user access level. So that also we can do with Azure Active Directory. And auditing services, and for example, if you're taking access for Azure Active Directory portal for some time, and so we can audit what is the purpose that you are taking this access, and are you be eligible to that. And so it's like it, we can see that auditing, and we can decide whether we have to give the access to that specific to that user or not. So that also we can control with Azure Active Directory. So so far, any questions? Okay. So yeah, why we need to choose Azure Active Directory? Why do we need to choose Azure Active Directory? Like, what are the benefits that Azure Active gives us? Like, first thing is like conditional access policies and high availability and data security, and it is available in worldwide, and it has a low cost. Okay, so based on these parameters, most of the organization right now, it is choosing to go with Azure Active Directory, like conditional access policies. So by using conditional access policies, you can control access. So if you want to block the users, you can block the users. And if you wanted to give a specific users, you can give the access to a specific user. Anything is possible with conditional access policies. And also passwordless authentication. In most of the companies, it is not implemented right now, but yeah, that will be the future for Azure Active Directory. So what are the different ways that we can give the passwordless authentication? Like uh, right now, Fido is one of the method that probably in future it will use for passwordless authentication. And Microsoft Authenticator through app, we can achieve passwordless authentication. And so based on these, Azure Active Directory is like one of the leading in the market right now, and like more of high availability. So it has like in throughout the world, it has number of data centers. If one data center is having some maintenance, and the remaining data centers will be serve the traffic. So like that. So the availability, and you know there is no service impact at any cost. So that is make sure by the Microsoft. Okay. And security. So as these products is in cloud, how securely we can keep our data in cloud. So that also it is taken care by Azure Active Directory. So yeah, and lastly, like low cost. So for each and every product, the cost would be high, and when it comes to Azure Active Directory, so it is like the low cost and the reliable, okay, and high availability. So majorly, any company they can think about these are the major parameters to choose any product. Uh, so that's where Azure Active Directory, right now it is leading the market. And so if you take the simple architecture for Azure Active Directory, so it can integrate with cloud applications and mobile applications or mobile devices, and we can manage external devices, and we can give the access to the external users in a secured way. And you can connect with your internal employees or desktop employees and applications like on-premise applications. So this is not possible with all the product, and some of the product only it is possible. So Azure Active Directory is one of that. So it's like it is more reliable to connect or to integrate with any kind of applications or identities. And for example, if you have the identities in Azure on-premise Azure Active Directory, and but here you working on Azure Active Directory, it's a cloud. So it is easy for us to connect and the sync data from on-premise Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. So like more of like reliable with respect to Azure Active Directory. Based on that, so most of the companies are choosing right now Azure Active Directory. Okay. And if you go with high level workflow, yeah, as we discussed already, Microsoft is connecting with HR applications and on-premise Active Directory and on-premise legacy applications and cloud hosted applications and SaaS based applications. Okay. So and it will also connect with the users, so whoever the end users. So it's like more of reliable with respect to all the applications and identities and the users. So that's the one of the main reason to choose Azure Active Directory. And so major clients that currently it is using Azure Active Directory is Arizona, state of Arizona, and CVS Pharmacy, and American Express, Madsen Navigation, Genpact, Wells Fargo, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Bank of America. So these are the major clients that currently is using this one, Azure Active Directory, and who all learn this Azure Active Directory. Like any degree with a 2+ years of gap and passion to learn and value added for other who is working on different product, and if they wanted to migrate, if they get a migration project from that product to Azure Active Directory, it is easy for them to learn and work on migration projects. So so that is one of the plus point for them. And yeah, so when it comes to high level overview, so what are the things that we will cover? Like what is the overview of Azure Active Directory and different types of applications. So what are the applications that we work, web application and single page application, desktop application and mobile application, and yeah, different types of applications and device types like Azure AD join, hybrid Azure AD join, or AD registered devices. So with these we work in future, and data classifications. So for example, if you're coming to integrate a new application, so what kind of application that is, and what kind of data that the third party or the end user will access. Based on that, the data will be classified internal, confidential, or highly confidential. For internal users, what exactly we need to apply the conditional access policies, and if it is highly confidential, what kind of conditional access policies that we have to apply. If it is confidential application, then how, what CA policies that we have to apply, that we will see, and what are the different types of authentication method in Azure Active Directory. So like pass-through authentication, password hash synchronization, and ADFS. So where exactly the authentication will happen? For example, if you take pass-through authentication, so the authentication will happen at on-premise Active Directory, and for the ADFS also the similarly on-premise Active Directory the authentication will happen. For password hash synchronization, the authentication happen at Azure Active Directory level. So first we need to sync the data or identities from on-premise Active Directory to Azure Active Directory, and so once it is synced, then the authentication process or authentication method we have to choose it as a password has synchronization, so that the authentication will happen at Azure Active Directory level. Okay, and what are the different protocols that we work, like SAML 2.0 protocols, like IDP initiated journey, SP initiated journey, or what kind of a journeys it is, like how the journey will start and how we can integrate these applications, and what data or what information that we required when we are integrating this application. So from application side, and what information that we need to provide to application team to make it work. So what are the journeys, IDP initiated journey and SP initiated journey. So what are the prerequisites for this, so and what are the information or metadata that we need to get from application. We will discuss more about IDP and SP initiated journey when we come across this one, and other protocols like YDC and WAUth protocols. So what is the purpose of YDC and what is the purpose of WAUth? And so if user want their user related information or ID token, in that case we use YDC. And so when is the WAUth that we use? WAUth is like open authorization. So what are the grant different flavors of WAUth? We call it as a grant types, like authorization code with Pixie, and implicit flow, and client credential flow. So when we use authorization code and authorization code with Pixie, and when we use client credential flow and application calling API, so in which scenario we use that, and how we can integrate the mobile application or desktop application with what, that we will see in future classes. And yeah, as I said, what are the conditional access policies that we can create, and so in generally how it will create and how we can apply and how it will restrict the users, that probably we can see. Yeah, so authorization code flow, it's already discussed, and Azure AD Connect. So what exactly Azure AD Connect? So it's like it's like another library from Microsoft to connect from on-premise Active Directory to Azure Active Directory. So with the help of Azure AD Connect, we can sync the identities from on-premise Active Directory to uh, Azure Active Directory. It's a cloud-based, so we can achieve it with different third-party libraries also. But yeah, as we are using Microsoft product, we can use Azure AD Connect. So maybe some of the companies they may use differently, but yeah, this is the like I would say library that we can use to connect from on-premise to Azure Active Directory. And so hello Windows hello pin login mechanism, so this is for which devices it will be applicable and how you are logging into your laptop. So that probably we can see. Apart from that, we can cover STIM system for cross domain identity management. So for example, if you are maintaining a database and with respect to application team, if they wanted this data or these identities to be synced with their database, and whatever the modifications is happening at your end, so the same identities will be reflected at application side, so that it is easy for them to maintain a clean database from application side. In that case, we go ahead with the scheme integration. So it's like more of like not an integration and the process how we can do that. Okay, and yeah, apart from that, so in Azure AD Connect, how we can use the pass-through authentication or password has synchronization, that we will cover. So these are like overall the high level. What are the topics that we will cover in future, and what are the different authentication methods currently we are using, and like the password initially we use like fancy numbers like 1 2 3 4 5 6, and later it is like SMS based or voice based authentication. After that, authenticator app, that recently currently we are using authenticator app, and some of the hardware token, so where it will generate a token, and with the help of that token we can able to log in the application. And yeah, passwordless, this passwordless is some of the methods are implemented in some of the companies but not in all the companies. But yeah, we'll these are like in future we will get these features with Azure Active Directory. So by using Authenticator app, how we can use passwordless, and Windows Hello Pin and Fido security kits like a physical device where you need to give your details, and it works based on your thumbprint and the certificates. So these are not implemented. In future, probably we can see how this will be implemented. And yeah, it's like 20 to 25 hours training, and so it is easy for us to create a tenant, and for lab practice I will help you on that. And so most of like I'll try to provide materials, and we generally follow Microsoft articles. So I'll try to help you with those articles, and if I have any other materials also, I'll try to provide you. And so yeah, if anything like resume or mock interviews, we'll try to help you on those perspectives. So any questions so far?
Nothing specific to check. I think so far we are good.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so so far we discussed like what are the things that we cover, and so we'll see now. Okay, before this we'll discuss few things. Okay, so on last class we were discussing about what are the features or what Azure provide the services like on-premise and infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, software as a service. So here whatever the green color, okay, so that has to be managed by you, and so whatever the blue color is, it will be managed by Microsoft. For example, if you have to take on premise, okay, so I'm just still explaining this because not only for this Azure Active Directory, if you are taking any other services also, okay, so this is useful for you. For example, if you wanted to keep uh, Active Directory, so for example, if we take on-premise Active Directory, so that comes under on-premise, okay, so everything you have to manage. So, for example, storage or networking or compute or virtual machines or operating system or runtime or applications or data and access, everything you have to manage. When it comes to infrastructure as a service, so it will be like data access, application, runtime, operating system till virtual machines you have to take care, and compute, networking, storage will be managed by Microsoft. In platform as a service, the similar way, and software as a service, you simply need to manage your data and the access level. So that's it. Okay. So so when it comes to software as a service, for example, in last class we were discussing like so who will maintain or who will do the patches and all. So that you don't worry about that. So that everything will taken care by Microsoft only. And if anything that they are doing, so in generally while you are creating your tenant, so you have to choose the nearest data center. For example, if you're in India and you have to choose the nearest data center, maybe Hyderabad, for example, or Bangalore or Mumbai, somewhere else. The second, for example, if the first data center is not available, then you have to go ahead with the secondary data center. For example, if you choose Bangalore as the first one, and if you choose, uh, Mumbai is the secondary, then so if any maintenance with respect to in Bangalore, and everything will be the services will be connected to the backend Mumbai secondary as the secondary. So that is how the reliability and the service availability. Okay, so this is how it works basically. So Bharat, your question, this is what, right? In last class.
No, Vijay. I think it's not from my side. The question is
Sorry.
last time.
Okay, yeah, someone asked. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is how it managed by Azure Active Directory, and so now we will discuss what basic terminologies like what is authentication and what is authorization and what is a single sign-on and so what is the web server and application server. So we will discuss these points now. So anyone has any idea what is authentication? Okay, so authentication is nothing but verifying user by providing the username or password. So whether this user, I mean, this user is a right user or not. Okay. So for example, if you're entering into your company, okay, so you have to provide your ID card. So where it will just validate whether you are a part of this organization or at least this building or not. Okay, so simply authentication is nothing but verifying user by providing the username or password. And what is authorization? So authorization is nothing but you wanted to give a specific application access. For example, I'll tell you in a generic way. For example, if you're entering into one tech park, okay, so we call it as a sedge. So you generally maintain sedge id card as well as your company id card. So sedge id card, and so the verification for sedge id card is like authentication. And so once you log you have to go to your company, so there again you need to give your id card. Okay, then only it will allow you, right? So that is like authorization. So it's in a simple words, authentication is nothing but you are a part of this organization or not. And authorization is nothing but authorization is nothing but so whether you are eligible to access a specific application. Okay, so that is nothing but authorization. So authorization is nothing but extra privilege or extra access to the resource. So here the resource is nothing but the application. Okay, so any questions, any confusions? Okay, so we'll discuss what is single sign-on. Okay, so anyone has an idea what is single sign-on?
Uh, Same user IDs and password will be used for multiple applications to access.
Yeah, 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 that's correct. So basically, when you enter into any organization, for example, we take a simple example. So you will have to manage n number of applications. For example, once you enter into any organization, you have to log in to each and every application. For example, you have a ADP portal. Okay, so you have to your salary and payslip, everything you can see in ADP. And the similar way, for example, if you have n number of HR related applications, so where you need to enter the timesheets and where you need to register your absence. Okay, so like that, maybe you have 20 to 30 applications. Okay, on regular basis you may need to access hardly 10 to 15 applications, but the remaining applications is like you can access monthly once or twice. Okay, so for example, if you are not in SS for single sign-on, So for each and every application, you have to maintain a separate username and password, right? So it is it is very difficult for you to manage or maintain different username and password for each and every application, right? So by using single sign-on, if you log into one application, okay, you can able to log in other applications without any login mechanism. That is where single sign-on comes into the picture. Okay, so you logged into ADP portal, and by using that session, okay, so the remaining applications use that session over the browser, and you can easily log in into other applications as well. So that is nothing but single sign-on. Okay, and um, anyone has any idea about what is web server and application server? So before we go into web applications or single page applications, so we should have some idea about web server, what is web server, and what is application server, so that it is easy for you to go into web applications or single page applications. So in your organization, have you heard web server like Apache and IIS? What are these things? So if for any server, if you are maintaining, for example, if you take on-premise Active Directory, okay, so how it is built, a physical server is there, on top of that, for example, Microsoft Windows 16 2016 or something they built, and on top of that IIS is there. So IIS is nothing but web server. Okay, so web server is like process HTTP request. So it process HTTP request, and it will respond with HTML pages. Okay, so it basically deals with the static content like HTML pages and images, etc. So there is no server side programming and database for this. Okay, so for example, if you take Apache, Apache works as a web server. Okay, so if you build any server, so most of companies, if it is on-premise infrastructure, then they generally go ahead with Linux machines, latest versions of Linux. On top of that, they generally keep Apache as a web server. Okay, so that will handles initial request like HTTP request, and it will respond with the HTML pages. So basically, whatever the operations that we perform with this application server, in some of those operations we can manage with web server itself. Okay, so it's like in web server, it has a static content like so whatever you develop a code, that will be accessed through this Apache or web server. Okay, so any questions? Are you getting?
Yeah, Vijay. Yeah, we are on track.
Oh, okay. And what is application server? So application server is like where they deploy their business logic. Okay, so it serves business logic to application program through various protocols. Okay, and it handles all application operations between user and database. And so here it will deals with the dynamic pages. For example, if you're something you're doing and it will generate a different code for you, and some other person is working the same application, and if he's getting different code, then it will dynamically generate that information, right? So for that, basically application server, they deploy it in application server, and it has like it will connect to the backend database. Okay, and so it has a business owned logic, what exactly and what we need to provide. So that is basically maintained by application server. And in application server, for example, if you take WebLogic, okay, WebLogic or WebSphere or JBoss or Apache Tomcat, these comes under application servers. And also Cbel is one of the application server. I, I think you heard Cbel applications, right? So here also, whatever the business logic or the actual content that is stored in the Cbel application layer, in front of that application layer there is another Apache or something, Apache with the Linux machines and all. Okay, so initially the request will be taken care by that Apache. From there, they will send it to the backend application server. And also, I forgot to tell one thing. I will also cover application proxy, that also I will cover as a part of this uh, Azure Active Directory workshop. Okay, so here the application proxy, how it works, and so what are the configuration that we have to choose, and in different types of proxy, like forward proxy or reverse proxy, what forward proxy does and what reverse proxy does, and how we need to configure or we can identify that also we will discuss as part of this. So in Cbel applications also, most of the applications like a proxy acts as a reverse proxy, acts as a like a forwarder from the backend Apache or Linux machine to the Cbel application server. So the actual content, the business logic is lies in the application server. Okay. So any doubts, any questions on what is web server and application server? So these are like fundamentals. You just have some idea so that it is easy for you to understand. And when it comes to the new application integration, so you have to get these information, and so this, if you have idea about these, then you will get easily understandable from application perspective. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So I'll give some brief about confidential client and public client, and then we will wind up today. So, what is confidential client and public client? Any idea? Okay. So, confidential client is nothing but um, where you can securely store your application information. For example, if you're developing a application, okay, so for example, if it is in HTML pages, or if you develop in Java or in different language, so you have to keep it in a secured way over the server. Okay, so in server, here we can discuss like what kind of web applications or single page applications, but yeah, how securely you can store that information. Okay, so and also while we are registering this application with Azure Active Directory, we can provide the client ID and the client secret as well. Okay, So I will explain you when it comes to what is client ID and client secret. So to connect to our Azure Active Directory, and for validation purpose, the client ID and secret will be useful. So those information also they can deploy it in their code level. So how securely they can maintain, that comes under confidential client. And public client is nothing but, so whatever that the content or pages, okay, the pages or the developer developed the code and that kept in the some location with the server within the server. So everything will be loaded over the browser, okay. So that we can see, or we can the see even the code each and everything within the browser itself. So that comes under public client. Okay. So any questions, confidential client and public client? Okay, so I'll
No,
explain you the in deep about confidential client and public client, probably by tomorrow. So yeah, for today we will wind up. And any questions so far?
no,
No,
Vijay.
Vijay, no
That's
questions.
it from my side.
Okay. So is it okay? Can we connect tomorrow also? Because yesterday I was in not well. So
Yeah, well,
um,
otherwise, can we start from Monday, Vijay? Like,
yeah,
why?
yeah, that's
Because
also
of.
fine. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
we can.
in generally, we don't have a classes on Saturday, Sundays. Um, so yeah, only the weekends from Monday to till Friday we can cover. So anyhow, yeah, we will connect again on Monday. Monday at the
Sure,
same time. Okay.
sure, Vijay.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.